physical wealth. Hello, hello, hello. Today is Monday night, and it's been quite a while since I've been on live streaming here, volunteering my time for mental health, so you and organizations can understand that mental health is physical wealth. This is a live stream episode where I like to interact with people as you come into the comments. This is a difficult show, and I've been trying to get it out there for some time, but I've been rather busy and life's been hitting kind of hard. So I haven't been able to get online to do these live streams, but I'm here today. I'm going to give everyone some time to come in because I am also late today. Life hitting hard, y'all. And if you a woman and you juggling a lot of stuff and you wearing many hats, you know exactly what I mean. Okay. So don't judge me. I'm just saying I'm doing the best I can, getting on when I can. So if you're here, comment. And feel free to comment throughout. Hopefully you've been binge watching my other episodes since I've been away or too busy to come on. But again, this is my volunteer time. And while I love to volunteer, sometimes I just don't have the time. So please, please, please click subscribe and the notification bell. So when I am on, you'll get that notification ring. I'm not the only one that shares the Erudition network. My husband does history on Thursdays, and sometimes my sons come on and talk to their generations. But all the shows are interactive, and we love for the audience to participate and interact. Today is going to be a tough topic. It is one that was branching off from previous episodes, and it's a hot topic. I haven't really talked about this online or live stream yet in such detail that I will go into today. But I wanted to say something because oftentimes we're seeing the hot topic in the political market where people are talking a lot about a woman's reproductive choices and her struggles. A lot of times people don't know unless you say something. And a lot of times women are forced to normalize being quiet about things that they aren't dealing with very well mentally. A lot of times people say, oh, they'll tell a woman, oh, well, yeah, you were pregnant, but it wasn't a viable pregnancy, so it terminated itself. So it didn't come full term to show where you were actually pregnant. You never, went through the first stage fully in order for the test results to come back to say that you were actually pregnant. But there's another test that shows that, yes, you were pregnant, but it terminated itself. There's a lot of people out there like that. There's a lot of women out there like that. And you don't understand. Those women are not the same after that. They're never the same after that. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about those women who have shown that they were pregnant and the pregnancy terminated itself without medical intervention. Let's talk about that. That's still your child. And whatever that child name was, call that name. And that child's baby picture is the ultrasound. Or if you didn't have an ultrasound, then that picture of you while that baby was in your womb, that is your baby's baby picture. Call that baby's name out. Say that baby's name. Don't just muffle your feelings about it and not be vocal about it because someone tried to convince you that, oh, this is normal, this happens to everybody. It's not that it doesn't happen to everybody or whatever. The matter of the fact is how you are dealing with it, how you're coping with it, your mental health, your physical health. It's about you and how you feel. So don't stifle yourself. Don't stifle your voice. Don't forget your baby. You can't forget your baby, but let other people hear about it too. Hey, Sean Anthony, thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. Guys even have feelings about, these things. And those guys should have the ability to say, hey, yeah, well, some things happen. And yeah, I did have a kid. And if that kid were here today, I would have named that child whatever you would have named it. And, show the pictures. Don't let it just fester inside and hurt and overwhelm. I remember being in the military. Some people say, well, you were a military spouse. I don't care what perspective I had in it. I was in it long before I married Eddie, and Eddie decided to go into the Eddie and I were we grew up together in church. So I was with him long before the duffel bag came. And prior to that, my brother was in the military. He was in the Navy. And whenever he needed a backbone, whenever he couldn't get through, whenever he had a lot of pressure. He had to inform, the hierarchy of the Navy, the chiefs and the captains and admirals and things like that. And he couldn't talk to people about what he was going through. Nobody in the military can talk about it except to those who have the clearance. So it was really difficult to be a backbone for somebody who they can't tell you what's wrong. They can't tell you what an ouch is. But my sister, she also went. And being military is different than being a civilian when you're trying to have children, because a lot of times you're alone. And it's not that you don't want company. And I certainly didn't want company. I wanted to be spared and delivered when I was in that NICU. When I was in the NICU with my brother's babies, because they were premature twins and he had to be deployed. But he was torn and broken and shattered. The military, they like, well, you got to be where you got to be. And everybody is having some difficulties having children. There was in one particular location in a military base, something was wrong with the water. Everybody was losing their babies. Everybody was losing their babies. And it was a lot of people in the NICU. A lot of women did not know, didn't understand. Even the doctors didn't know and didn't understand. Nobody knew and nobody understood what was going on. But everybody was in this situation and everybody had to deal with it. And the military personnel had to deploy. They had to go wherever they were needed, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. At least that's what they tell you. And in the situation with those essential personnel, the military doesn't run effectively without those people. So who's helping their family? Who is helping that individual to get through it mentally, emotionally? And it's difficult when you're fighting on two different ends. You're fighting with the military for the country and you're fighting at home because your babies are in the NICU. And what is the NICU? The NICU is the neonatal intensive care unit. It's where little bitty babies who just come out of their mother's womb, maybe they're a pound, maybe less, or maybe they're bigger, but for some reason they end up in the intensive care unit for babies. I remember being in the NICU with my brother's babies. It was an experience that was beyond words. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go because I kept hearing everybody say different things and how they weren't going to make it and how, it's just so traumatic. And you hear all of these people. Now that's your company. That's the company you're surrounded by. And they're saying these disparaging things, but it was because of their beliefs. It's because of their experiences. It's because of the odds. The odds were not in their favor. And here I am being asked to go to this NICU while my brother is deployed and to stand in the gap. And I'm like, who am I? I'm much younger than my brother. I'm 4 years younger than my big brother. And I was like, think maybe early high school, maybe late elementary. I don't know, but I'm like, who am I to stand in the gap for? I don't know what I'm doing. Y'all grown. I don't have a clue. But he was like, please go. So I went. The prognosis was not good. It was dire. It was severe. It was fatal. But when I arrived, things started turning around. And I saw so many people up in there that it just so heavy and it compels you to pray. Now, I didn't know that later in my life, I'd be in a situation that's similar to that. I'd be in the NICU with my own babies. So that experience that I had earlier on helped me when I had to experience it on my own. I watched my brother's wife be in the NICU with company. Her mom was a major in the Army, and she was a nurse. And, she had that, and she herself was a nurse. And we have all this understanding and education and training, but there's still information we don't have. There's still things we don't know. We didn't know why the babies were failing to thrive. We don't know why they came out 1 pound or barely a pound. We don't know. And even when it was me in the NICU, I didn't know why I was in the NICU. So it's not to say, and if you know me, you would ask yourself the same question. I didn't need people around me asking me, man, I'm surprised you in the NICU, how you end up in the NICU. I know you, I know your life. I tried to eat right. I did eat right. I didn't try. I ate right. I slept. I did everything right. I still ended up in the NICU. And it was surprising. It was alarming. It was hurtful. It was challenging. And I didn't talk to anybody. I don't talk anyway. But when I'm led to say something, I say something, but it's very limited. I do mostly hearing. That's why I'm a psychologist, because a lot of things I do is to listen. But I didn't understand, out of all the people I've helped along my way, how in the world could God allow me to end up in the NICU with my firstborn baby? I was hurt. I didn't have time to wallow in self-pity. I didn't have time to think about it. I just had to react. I just had to act. And my husband, he was active duty. It's like we're in the military and we're experiencing these things. They had to take these shots, and we don't know if these shots were one of the aspects that was causing everybody to lose their children. And I'm around people who have lost their child, and I'm stressing because I don't know if I'm going to have a viable pregnancy. I don't know if I carried this baby only to deliver a baby that will be born asleep, a rainbow baby, or a baby that's going straight from the womb to God's hands. I didn't know, and I was scared. And I had to take this shot in my back, and I don't know if I'm going to get paralyzed from it. I wasn't even 100 pounds soaking wet with combat boots on, okay? And I thought that maybe that was a part of the problem. I was too skinny trying to have babies, trying to carry a viable baby to term. I don't know. I thought maybe I was too active. I used to be a track athlete. I used to be extremely muscular and very active. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I ended up in the NICU. I've always had medical records that showed, textbook excellence or whatever. It's just never been a thing that came to mind that I would end up in the NICU. I don't think it end up in anybody's mind that they'll end up in the NICU, especially because technology in the medical field has advanced so much that, back in the day, women were dying trying to give birth. But because of medical advancements, we see a lot of women that's not a problem anymore, at least not as much of a problem. But I was still scared, and I still was uncertain. And regardless of my faith, or my growing in faith, I still was uncertain. I didn't know what to do, how to do. And I wanted company, but at the same time, I didn't want company. I just wanted to be spared and delivered. And I couldn't elucidate that. I could not vocalize that. I couldn't tell people what I needed, what I wanted. But I'm standing alone and I'm standing in the need of prayer. And I'm in the NICU just like everybody else. Who am I to say anything to anybody while I'm also standing in the need, a great need of prayer for myself and my own child? But what did I do? I still reached out to other people. I still tried to help other people. I still tried to be, let them view my situation as it's happening, so they knew what to do with their situation as it was happening. I'm a very private person. I don't like people looking at me. I don't like people staring at me. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I would rather be in the background and telling somebody else who wants to be in the spotlight, go ahead. I support you. I'm going to stand behind you. I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to be your backbone. I'm going to be your cheer squad. I'm going to do everything you need so you can be in the spotlight. I don't want to be that person. I would rather, take my wounds and lick them behind closed doors. But sometimes we don't get what we want. If I was in control of my life, I would do things so much more differently. But who would have helped those people who I've helped along my way? I'm not saying God don't have contingency plans, because I assure you he does. If I refuse to go, or if I refuse to do anything that needs to be done, there's somebody waiting in the wings. It's never the case where, something don't get done because you refuse to go. So that's not the case. The case is it's a personal journey. It's a personal situation, and it's about how you deal with that personally. Now, why did I say that? Because during this political time, we've seen Roe versus Wade. We've seen Kamala Harris talk about it and be more vocal. And a lot of times people may look at her and say, well, she's never been more vocal about it before. I've never been vocal about it before, and said my struggles with both my August babies, my first baby and my last baby. It was difficult that every third month, every single time I got pregnant, I couldn't walk. I was paralyzed from the waist down. That was difficult because I'm very active. I like to keep moving. I like to stay on the go. I like to still run and play on the playground. I still like to ride my bike. I still like to roller skate. I still love to run. Even though I got asthma, I still don't let that control what I do actively. But when you can't walk, when you paralyzed from the waist down, it's a different story. You're not in control. I had a childhood friend that I grew up with in church came to my state we were stationed in when I was pregnant. She was also pregnant, and she wanted to meet up. And I didn't have the heart to tell her, I'm paralyzed from the waist down, sis. I can't move. And no, I don't want company. I don't want nobody coming to be here with me, because I'm trying to pray myself through this. I'm trying to pray my baby and I through this. I'm trying to get through this alive when everybody else around me is losing their baby. And nobody can understand that because they didn't go through it. They didn't experience it. Nobody can understand my perspective either because they didn't experience that. Nobody's going through that. There was a traumatic experience where I had to actually hold a baby in while the mother's crouch was just bare and the baby feet was dangling. I have not gotten over that. And I had to keep that baby in there until we got to the ER. And even then, I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. I had to keep standing in the gap and praying. I didn't care about what the people that I've helped, what they did wrong. I didn't say things like, oh, you must have did something wrong in your life to deserve this. Oh, your lifestyle, your sexuality, your faith, your religion, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. When you are standing in the need of prayer, you shouldn't be judging anybody. You should just do what's innate in you to do. And that is the commandment, love you one another. That's all you was commanded to do. Not judge, not condemn, not convict. And I have never, and I will never, unless I'm led to say something, I don't say anything at all. Because when you standing in the need, do you want somebody nitpicking what you did wrong, how you could have deserved it? That's why I didn't ask anybody to come and help me. That's why I didn't ask for somebody to come there with me, because everybody was going through their own thing. And I didn't need anybody sitting there telling me, wow, I'm surprised you here. I know how you live your life. And I know that if anybody would be okay, it'd be you. I didn't need that. I heard that after the fact, but it was over. It was over. And I was stronger. I was strong enough to hear that without snapping and blanking out and not knowing what I'm apologizing for, but I'm apologizing because I'm human. I'm human, and you can only push people so far before something snaps and you're finally reminded that that person is human. I've had those moments, and I try very hard to control that reoccurrence, because oftentimes, I don't know, my husband still today will not tell me what I said to the nurse when I was struggling to have that firstborn. And it was hard because I didn't know if he was going to live. There was things that were going wrong, and nobody could say what it was. Nobody could pinpoint. All these professionals, all how good they are at their job, how exceptional they are in their medical field. Nobody could tell me anything. And I wasn't very young. I was already like 25 years old. So I know that was really old to be having your firstborn. So at this point, I'm mature. I'm a mature woman, and you're not going to tell me stupid stuff and I'm just going to take it. That's not happening. So I don't know what I said to the nurse because I wasn't mentally there. My husband will not tell me, and all he can say is that wasn't you. And he won't tell me what happened. I never saw that nurse again. I wanted to apologize to her. I wanted to ask her what happened. I wanted to ask her, are you aware that that wasn't me, that I don't know what happened? But I couldn't. But there was a lot that was going on. And the baby seemed like he was okay when he came out after all the hell we went through. But some reason or another, we ended up in the NICU. No one could say why. No one could say how long I'd be there. No one could say any definite answers. And I got tired of that. Again, I was a mature woman. I had already been in the NICU with my brother's babies, and I didn't see any of the things that I saw when I was in the NICU with them, whether it was my nieces or the people around us, babies. So I understood that history enough to understand that I could declare and decree, we getting out of here, hell or high water. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my baby. And we getting out of here, regardless of what we went through having the baby. During that time, they had forceps. There was a woman in there with a big old butcher knife talking about, let's cut her. You know, there was things going on in that delivery room. And I'm in and out. I'm fully conscious, but subconscious more than fully conscious. And in the NICU, I was still a little in that same haze, because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I wasn't getting enough of anything because I was stressed and I was nursing my baby. And I'm very shy. I don't like people looking at me, and everybody's eyes are on me, looking at me breastfeeding my baby. I'm like, look, cover y'all eyes or we all get naked. So I feel more comfortable. Okay. Look, y'all got to stop with that. So, and I didn't know how to vocalize that because again, I'm not a very vocal person. I don't say a lot. I hold a lot in. So when I finally do say something, I say it, in joking, and I try to just, get it out and let everybody understand I'm very uncomfortable. Can y'all do something different or do something better? But when I was in the NICU, I could see why people were peering over there. They didn't know either. They didn't know what to do either. They didn't know how to do it. And I was having a more positive experience than they were. And they wanted to know why. How are you doing this and you doing it better? How is it that your baby is thriving better than ours and we all doing the same thing? What's the difference? Now, this was before studies showed that your faith impacts your medical situation. But studies do show that now, but this was before that. This was before it was broadcast that nurses in the NICU were racially abusing the babies in the NICU. This was before it was broadcast where the doctor was delivering a Black baby and snatched the head off the baby while the baby was still in the mother's birth canal, and she still had to keep on pushing to deliver the rest of the baby. This was before it was broadcast that a lot of things that were happening was happening. And it could make the person who's experiencing these things go insane, maybe temporarily, maybe permanent, but it can make them feel disbelief that this is happening to them, that this is a reality, that this is a situation that you're experiencing and it is actually real. It's your real life experience. It's unfathomable. And you cannot explain it. But when it was televised, when it was broadcast that this was happening, it's not like you can go back to those people who were in the NICU at the time and say, hey, I understand that you weren't going crazy. I understand that you may be going through still because it was a traumatic situation and you couldn't express it in a way that anybody would believe you, let alone understand you. I understand that. I don't want to understand it. I don't want that to have been my experience. I don't want that to have been my child's experience, let alone two of them. 2 out of 4 were in the NICU, and I don't know why. And I don't talk about it. But I don't believe that anybody should be able to tell a woman what to do about their reproductive situation when scientists are still learning, when no one can understand a woman's womb, when no one can replicate nor control what happens despite the mother's lifestyle, despite the mother's excellence in her weight, in her performance, how athletic she is, if she's sedentary and just sitting around, what she eats, her faith, nothing. You can't control anything in that regard. And your company, though it may be appreciated, it's not enough. It's not enough. Your protection is not as present and as readily felt as it needs to be in order for you to have as much vocal control about it to say, let's make a law of it, while there's no law that dictates a man's reproductive decisions. Maybe if you were to protect women in that way, women would feel like you're a part of the decision. Maybe if you were able to understand how to control whether a woman would end up in the NICU if she's doing all the right things, or if she didn't do nothing right and she doesn't end up in the NICU, or her baby doesn't make it, or whatever the case. If you were able to better control a few things, to say you have a voice in it, I can understand making it a law. I can understand if you had a man's reproductive decisions in law already and you wanted to include a woman's reproductive decisions into law as well. I can understand you wanting to be inclusive in that. But those things don't exist. You can't predict whether I'm going to end up in the NICU or not. You can't predict whether I'm going to have a healthy baby or whether I'm going to have to be in the hospital time after time, again and again with that child. I was in the NICU with friends, sisters from another mother, brothers from another mother, military, because their husband was deployed. And the baby is still in the NICU. She's alone. She's afraid. She has other kids. She cannot decide to say, I give up my life to try to get this one to survive, and leave her husband with all the other kids. Nobody's thinking about that when they're making the woman decide whether she should choose to live or die for the baby that she's trying to have. When medical technology has advanced to the point where that doesn't have to be a forced issue. It doesn't have to be forced. A lot of times, especially in my situation, you have somebody that's more significant than other people may think. You're the backbone. You're supporting things. You're helping people and you're not saying anything about it. Your life is essential to helping other people. I believe humble is the way. So I don't say anything. I let those people tell their own testimony. But at the same time, we are so accustomed to judging and being judgmental and not being understanding. And then we're not even committed or dedicated to helping that follow through, helping with that follow through. You want to judge, you want to have voice in what's going on and what's happening, but you don't have nothing to do with the follow through. What about the people who didn't have a nurse to visit them at home after they were in the NICU? I had a nurse. She came to my home, but I had very good doctors. They were exceptional. And even though they were exceptional, I still ended up in the NICU. And they were there through the entire time. So I don't know. But like I said, it's unpredictable. It's a phenomenon. And you cannot control it. You cannot predict it. And that's the thing that scientists and researchers don't like. They don't like that uncertainty. They don't like the inability to predict these things. But that's the way it is. I wrote a book to try to help people to understand the fundamentals of these things. And I named it generational wealth. I named it generational wealth because you don't understand this phenomenon of movement. It is unpredictable. And it's individualized despite how people try to contrive things, despite their degrees and how excellent they are at their job and how well they did in school in order to be exceptional and renowned and infamous in their medical field. It still doesn't matter, because there's an aspect you didn't consider that studies are now starting to consider. And I wrote about it over the 20-year span of my academic writing. And I put it in that book. I try to help people to understand. And the reason why I oversimplify information, facts, because people go out of their way to overcomplicate information because they dilute it with opinion and not facts. It was an opinion that I wouldn't end up in the NICU. It was an opinion, not a fact, that I'm in the midst of a lot of people who losing their babies, and I won't end up in the NICU too. My husband was active duty. He took them same shots. He went through the same things that everybody else went through. I had the same vaccinations that I'm supposed to have. It's unpredictable. The only factor that I can say that was different is I told those people when my firstborn was in the hospital, was in the NICU, I told them, I said, look, why are we still here? It's almost 7 days and you still can't tell me anything. And the baby's doing fine. They said, well, we don't know how much the baby eating because he breastfeeding, try to give him a bottle, try to pump the milk in the bottle. And that wasn't working because the baby wasn't going to take a nipple that wasn't mine. And then there was a workaround and they weighed the baby's diaper, and that was something new that they had to come up with. I told you I had really good doctors, and they were working with some people who made it challenging for them to help me. Anyway, I told them, I said, come the 7th day, that devil is a lie. We are leaving. I had never done that before. I'm like, who am I to tell a doctor? They so good and they're helping me, the ones that were helping. And who am I to tell them? And they're trying to help me. And I'm telling them we're leaving. And my doctors, they were like, yep, let her go. And the other doctors who weren't being helpful and were angry at my doctors for being helpful because they wanted to keep studying us, they said, no, she can't go. But my doctors were like, no, she's going to go. We can't bind her here anyway. So what we'll do is we'll send a nurse home with her to just make sure that everything's going all right. And everything was fine. The baby had whatever was going wrong in that NICU, with the baby being in there and us being in there, whatever it was no longer an issue. I don't know if it was the environment. I don't know if it was because it was contrived, because it had something to do with our ethnicity. I don't know if it was because the doctors wanted to keep studying us. I don't know what it was. All I know is we left and everything was fine. Everything was okay. I'm not suggesting that everybody do that. I prayed a lot. I fasted as much as I could, because when you're breastfeeding, you have to eat, you have to drink. And I drank a lot of water. I drank so much water. They used to have this really big container, and it had a big straw in it. And I would fill that up every time I had to breastfeed. And my baby was eating, okay? He was eating like every 2 hours, but they wanted me to wait every 4. And I would do what they asked. But he would eat and he would eat and he would eat. But they thought he wasn't getting enough food because he would eat so much. He was just greedy. He was fat too. And I asked the doctor, I was like, why is he so fat? He looked like the Michelin baby. I was like, what is going on with him? And they said, well, you can't overfeed a breastfed baby. So you just go ahead and let him eat. And I'm looking like, do you see this Michelin baby? Y'all can't overfeed him? Okay now. He was a big baby when he was born. None of my babies could fit any infant or newborn diapers. They came out during their walking. They were so big. But yeah, shortly after they did start walking. So there you go with that. But in the beginning, it was an indescribable hell because nobody, even as good as they were with their job, nobody could tell me anything, and nobody could tell me why I ended up in the NICU. Then with the fourth baby, the last one, I ended up in the NICU. It was so bad trying to carry that one. And I finally had some weight on me. So I thought that maybe, I was going through that because I was too skinny to be trying to have a baby. So I had some weight on me, and I was still paralyzed from the waist down after the 3rd month of gestation. And it hurt to breathe. It hurt to move. It hurt to do anything. I was in so much pain. And I finally delivered the baby, and the baby was over 10 pounds. The doctors couldn't tell me why. Nobody could say anything, and they thought something was wrong with the baby. And we were in the NICU again for another 7 days. And another time I told them, we are leaving. Hell or high water, we are leaving. I even had to threaten to take my baby out of their NICU with the IV in them and take them across the street to Children's Hospital if they did not let us leave. I was not going to stay. You have rights, Mom. You have rights, Dad. You don't have to be in the NICU if you feel like they're not treating you right. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay silent. I wouldn't stay silent. I was a mature mom. I already had 3 kids, and this was the 4th. And here I am again, my umpteenth time in the NICU, not just with my child, but other people. So I was experienced, and there were people that were watching me who needed to know, who needed to understand, who needed to grow in the way that I was able to provide by them just watching me go through the experience because they were in the same NICU with me. And we turned up, okay? A lot of people had more faith. Those babies started to turn around. That was before people understood the baby needs skin-to-skin contact. And I was under extreme surveillance. And I would always keep my baby. And because I was nursing the baby, that's skin-to-skin contact. And I would hide the baby under my shirt because I'm shy. And that the skin-to-skin contact, and that's when they started to understand, oh, that's something that's really helping the baby because the baby is really starting to thrive. And other people started to follow. They started to follow suit. And when I got on Facebook and people started to ask me questions, I started to answer their questions, how I did what I did, and they started to follow suit. And they started to have a more positive lived experience as well. So sometimes we go through things and it's not about us. It's about the fact that we are strong enough to go through it so other people can watch and have the faith to endure and do the same thing. It's about trying your best. It's not about anybody else. It's an individual experience. And I promise you, when you're going through it, it's like being at war and being bunkered down in the ditch. You don't want company, but you got company. You don't want company, though. You want to be spared and delivered. That's what you want. Even if you can't vocalize that, even if you can't tell people what it is, God hear your heart. And he doesn't care about your life decisions. He hears your heart and he will answer. You don't have to be so holy and throwing Bibles at people and judging people and being their executioner and putting them through hell or personal hell. You don't have to do that. God hears them too. He hears us all. And just because you think you're doing everything right, you still may end up in that situation. It's only this the same thing that got me through, got everybody else through who watched me and asked me, what are you doing different that I'm not doing? How are you doing this? And all I could tell that woman who's crying because her baby is failing to thrive and she in the same NICU I'm in. And my baby's okay. And doctors can't tell her no different than they can tell me. She asks, what are you doing? Please tell me. Help me. What are you doing different? And all I could tell her, I'm praying. I'm praying. I won't stop praying. I'm drinking water every time I nurse the baby. All the whole time I'm nursing the baby. I wasn't really eating because they not bringing me food in the NICU. My husband was bringing me food when he could. But he, again, active duty military, and we had kids, so he got to go watch them. And he doesn't want to be stuck with the kids. Teddy, am I being seen and heard? Because I think I'm froze. Okay, so it's just froze on my end. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. But it was difficult to explain because I didn't know myself. I didn't know. I couldn't tell her anything different. All I could tell her is the truth, what I was doing, how I was doing what I was doing. And all I could do is keep on trying to do whatever I could. And what I was doing was, I don't know what I was doing. But I just said what it was I was doing, And when we see people going through and we going through the same thing, I don't know about you, but I started to examine myself. How can I help that person when I can't help myself? How can I tell you what to do when I'm not sure if that's what's working? I don't know if it's working. All I could do is tell you that that's what I'm doing. And it started to work for them too. And on Facebook, I had a lot of followers and everybody was really happy. I had over 11K followers, and everybody was really happy and grateful for the advice. And they said it was successful and it worked. I don't know. All I know is that's what I did. I don't know if it'll work for anybody else, but I'll tell you that that's what I did. And you could test it for yourself or don't do it. There were some people who were failing to get pregnant. And they kept asking me, well, what are you doing different? What are you doing different? Here you go. You pregnant again. What are you doing different? And what people don't know is when I was all throughout my life, whenever I eat something, it would be difficult for me to eat because it was difficult to digest it. So I don't eat a lot. So I'll eat a little bit. I'll try to keep eating it, but I can't. And I'll put it away. My husband gets really mad because I'm wasting food. But I got kids now, so now I just give it to them. But anyway, there's something going on that I don't know. And the doctors can't explain. And I thought that would be a factor to maybe why I ended up having some problems, but it was 2 out of 4. And the baby didn't have, anything wrong. And it's like, I'm doing everything right, but there's still something wrong. So there was really no answers. And I couldn't be conclusive in my advice. And I would tell people, and I'm always quick to tell people, I don't know, but I don't know, but, and I'll tell them what it is I'm doing or what I did or how I tried this or what I was trying or what I was thinking. But the common factor in all those times, whether it was me in the NICU, whether it was my brother's babies in the NICU, whether it was friends, military or civilian, who I was there trying to help, the one common factor in all the things that were different, when everybody started to pray, things turned around for the good. Baby started to pull through. Techniques improved so that the probability was higher for the baby to get out of the NICU sooner, when some of them weren't supposed to make it out at all. The probability was higher. The ratio of the people that were actually getting out with viable babies and not having a problem with the baby thereafter was increasing. I can't tell you conclusively that this or that reason was the sole reason why anything. I'm a scientist. I research. I've studied. For over 20 years of my life, I've been researching, and it's crazy. There's more to it than you might think. But I've been not just studying and researching academics and business, because that's my major, industrial organizational psychology. So there's a lot, that's a mouthful, right? But I've also been studying a bit like an anthropologist, studying various aspects and details because it relates to my field. And as it's directly impacting those things, I understand the bigger picture, so I could put the puzzle together a bit better than I can if I do it the way people want me to do it. They want me to be very blinders on and focused on a singular aspect or a singular location nationally or locally, but I do international. I've always done international. I give people what they want because I'm bound by their guidance to present to them what they want to see. And I don't say anything about anything other than that, because they don't want to hear about it anyway. They only want to hear about what they asked you to do. But if they go back and they look, they'll see all I've ever done was international, but I related in a local and national way. But it's all international studies. It's all international research, because it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your faith and religion is. What matters is what you do in the moment. That's what changes all of us. What we do in the moment. We can think what we're going to do. We can say what we're going to do when it's us. We can say what we would do if it was us. But in the moment, we change in the blink of an eye. And you would imagine that because it's spiritually written that we'll all be changed in the blink of an eye, that only going to happen when you should be raptured or when you should decide that you're going to live your life completely for God. No, this is not, it's nothing new under the sun. There's moments in your life, in your journey, where you change in the blink of an eye. And scientists, from what I've studied over my lifetime, they are always trying to predict and trying to alternate and control and manipulate those things so that they can predict it and judge what's going to happen and what's the varying aspect that changed the outcome or changed the variance. Nobody knows. And I've been writing that. I've been saying that for a very long time. Over 20 years. It's people's free will. And there's something phenomenal that happens in the blink of an eye that nobody can predict, nobody knows, and nobody can tell you. You just got to see it. You have to be there to see it. And when you see it, you still won't believe it. I didn't. I've seen atheists change in the blink of an eye. I've seen people do some things they didn't think they'd ever do. But it's because they were in the moment. and something changed in the blink of an eye. That blink of the eye might have been them in the NICU. That blink of the eye might have been them in the delivery room trying to push out a baby and live through it and get their baby to live through it. That change may have happened in the blink of an eye when the doctors, no matter how good they are, couldn't tell them what to do and couldn't help them. That change may have came when people trusted a political government and they come to find that's not where their help come from. That blink of an eye could have come when they were in the midst of company, when they were in dire need, and that company was not helpful. And they didn't know why. They couldn't tell why. They couldn't tell the person how to be helpful. They couldn't say, I want to be spared and delivered. I don't want company. I want help. I want to be spared and delivered from this problem, from these things, from these challenges. Can you do that? Can you help me with that? No. These things, these changes have come in the blink of an eye when the realization was had that the only thing that's going to help your situation, going to improve your situation, going to deliver you or spare you and deliver you is your prayers. Whether you speaking it out loud or whether it's just in your heart. That blink of an eye, when you in a situation and guns blaring and you don't know why, you just sitting there trying to enjoy yourself. You sitting there trying to grocery shop. You sitting there trying to be in school and learn something. You're sitting in a place of faith, trying to worship, and bullets whizzing by. You're sitting at a political rally and your life is on the line. That blink of the eye can be at any given time. That's what a phenomenon is. Something people don't know. They can't predict. It just happens spontaneously. And nobody can tell you, oh, well, you were such a devout anything, because nobody knows. Because when that moment happens, it's you. It's an individual experience. And you may not act the way you thought you would. I never have. I wouldn't expect anybody else would either, whether you're devout, whatever. I wouldn't expect you to react or act in a predictable way. I would always expect something unpredictable to happen because that's what I've experienced. And I don't like to talk about the NICU and these experiences that I've experienced because some of the people, they didn't get to keep their baby. But I always encourage them. If you have any pictures of your baby, keep your baby alive. Put the pictures up just like you put up your other baby's pictures, just like you put up your other family members' pictures. Talk about your baby. That's still your baby. You still a mama. And daddy, you still a daddy. I know people tell you some things that can discourage you from being vocal about your experience. But you still a daddy. You may have a whole bunch of kids because you spread your seed thin. I don't know. But you're still a daddy. Even if you told those women to get rid of them because it was a choice at the moment, you're still a daddy. You're still a father. Y'all need to protect us better than what you're doing, better than what you have. You need to protect us because without us, the human race ends. And you feel some type of way about that too. A lot of daddies sitting in the NICU. I saw them. They were there. They couldn't get no sleep because they had to choose. They had to choose sleep or be there because they got to go back to work. The biggest bill you can have is a medical bill. The biggest bill. you could ever have. Yeah, my student loan debt is huge. And yep, got to believe God for that too. But the biggest bill you can ever have in your life is a medical one. And no matter how many times you think you won't end up back in the ER, back in the extended stay at the hospital, or back in the NICU, or even in the NICU at all, you don't know. You don't know. So support women, support fathers, support them in their decisions, and let God be the judge. Because only God knows and only God can control. Because all of your smarts, your big-headedness, your egos, your id, whatever it is that's got you thinking that you can control something, you can't. And you don't know what it's doing to people mentally. And that prayer, it fills the gap for the mental thing too, for the mental aspect, so that you can deal with these traumatic experiences and keep your sanity. Whether it's you or whether you're just witnessing it. And studies do show that even if you're just witnessing something that's traumatic, you're traumatized too. You're affected by it as if it was you, even if it's only subconscious, where it gives you nightmares. You're affected by it too. So while this was a difficult topic, I'm happy I got it out, and I hope it helps somebody. Share it. You don't know what people are going through. And don't just share it to women. Share it to daddies too. Because it is those fathers who have to sacrifice in silence more, because it's not their physical body, but it's their heart. It's their mind. And it's the helplessness that they feel that they cannot tell anybody, because they're the head, they're a man. That's their family. That's their heart. That's their everything, their world. And they go out here and they work hard to try to maintain that, to try to make the best decisions that they can so they can afford to have a family. And they try to send whatever help they can while they're out there working, while they're deployed in the military, or they're a truck driver, or they got 2-3 jobs. And they can't be where they need to be for their family because they're trying to be where they gotta be to get the money that the family needs. Don't underestimate the dads. We need to support one another. So the decision is personal. It should remain personal. It's between the person dealing with it and God. That's all. That's my time for today. Hopefully I'll be back again next Monday, or just ring the bell. I might come back before then. But remember, mental health is physical wealth.